So today I wanted to share a new favorite recipe with you guys. I've never cooked with leeks before. I don't think I've ever even purchased them, never would have known what they were in the grocery store until hearing about potato leek soup, and love potato soup. And so I wanted to give it a try. So basically, I'm just going to walk you through the steps of what I did. I used 4 medium leeks per pot. So basically, I doubled the recipe. I used 4 medium leeks per pot. I chopped up all the leeks and then I washed them. You can wash them beforehand too. I just like washing them when they're loose in a strainer. And then you're going to toss in about a tablespoon of butter. After you toss in the butter, then you're going to want to turn your heat on. I turned it on to, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5, like a medium heat. And then you're going to want to strain your broth. If you're using homemade broth, you can use beef or chicken broth. And you can also just purchase broth from the store. I'll drain all of these and use the broth for the soup. You need about 4 cups of the broth. You are going to add about 4 cups of water in just a little bit, so you can use 8 cups of broth if you want it really rich. Next, you're going to add in about a tablespoon of flour into your butter and give it a good stir. And I just let this brown up for a few minutes. You don't need to leave it very long at all. Next, you're going to add in your 4 cups of broth and then go ahead and give it just a nice good stir so that all of your flour butter mixture mixes together well. Then you're going to add in your 4 chopped up leeks per pot. If you're doing double batch, or just 4 leeks for 1 batch, you're going to need a big, either wide or tall pot. It's going to look like it's going to come boiling out or something when you're first loading it up in there, because you still have to add your potatoes. But I promise it does cook down and it decreases in size, and it will all fit in a large pot. Next, you're going to want to add 2 medium-sized russet potatoes. Honestly, you could probably add more or less potatoes depending on how potatoey you want the soup to be. I usually end up adding about 4 potatoes total because we love potato soup. So the nice thing about this recipe is it is very forgiving and you can kind of play around with a lot of the ingredients. Here you'll see I also added in 4 cups of water. You could also, like I was mentioning earlier, add in 4 cups of more broth if you wanted to instead. The last thing I add to the pot of soup before I put the lid on to cook it is about half of an onion chopped up. You don't have to worry about your pieces being too small because you are going to use an immersion blender or a food processor in just a little bit. And then I go ahead and put the lid on and let it cook for about 20 to 30 minutes. Basically, you want your potatoes to get nice and soft. The leeks take almost no time to cook. So once you let it cook for about 20 to 30 minutes, I usually fish around for a piece of potato with a fork and I stab it to make sure it's nice and soft, just so it's going to be easier on my immersion blender. And then you're going to go ahead and start using that blender to blend up your soup. At this point, you could put it in a food processor as well if you don't have an immersion blender. Then you're going to add about half a cup of milk. I've used like a 3.5% milk. I've used a 2% milk, and then honestly, you probably could use coconut milk if you wanted to as well. I didn't even measure here. I just poured some in until it looked good because I've just gotten used to using this recipe because we've eaten a lot of this soup lately. But half a cup is roughly a good measurement. And then you're just going to add salt and pepper to taste. You could also add in additional things like some green onion tops if you wanted more of an onion flavor. You could add more onion in there. You could also add in garlic powder or fresh minced garlic too. It's a pretty versatile, simple soup.
my gloves? Okay. Oh.
What you got, Josh?
Got some lobsters.
Some lobsters?
Yep.
You wanna pick one up and show the friends on the YouTubes?
Lobsters.
Oh my gosh. Hey, go ahead. What is all that? So about 10 months ago, we started water glassing eggs. You use a mix of lime powder and water, and I have a whole video on how to water glass them. This is our first time using them. So this egg I'm showing you right here in this video has that crack down it. And I guess some of the eggs, when they get jostled, cracked, or I don't know if it's just something chemically that happens, but I had, out of this whole jar, I probably had about 5 eggs that had that crack in it. So I just set those away to take out to the chickens. We crush up eggshells and give them to them. So that's what we did with those. But the rest of the jug of eggs was still good. I have read online and heard some people say that it's best to wash them really well and then crack them into a bowl by themselves, just in case something's happened and it's gone bad, then you don't ruin whatever you're making. So I followed that instruction and cracked each one individually into a different bowl. The texture is really runny, so if you've ever kept your own eggs and you've experienced a rotten egg, the texture of a rotten egg is like liquid, like pure liquid. It's gross. And so my brain associates like the really liquid egg with a rotten egg. But when you crack it into the bowl, you smell it, there's no smell. And you cook it up and it cooks up just like a regular egg. I wouldn't have known it was a water glassed egg. That being said, it's a weird thing to get past, the texture changing just when you're cracking it, just because your brain says, that must be rotten because it's weird texture. But it's really a great way to preserve eggs. At this stage, I don't think we're going to preserve them again this year because our chickens are still laying okay. And yeah, I think it was an interesting thing to try out. It's great if you have a ton of eggs. For now, I think we're okay, and we probably won't water glass any this year. Pantry challenge time. So January and February, we have made a goal not to go grocery shopping for 2 whole months. We're joining in Three Rivers Homestead's Pantry Challenge. I'll hashtag it down below so you can click that and check out other accounts doing the exact same thing. But basically the idea is that we're going to eat up all of the stores that we have in our pantry and our freezer and fridge that maybe has been skipped over every time we go to make a meal. So hopefully what this will do is challenge us to learn new recipes, try different things out, and see what we can come up with to eat for every meal without having to go to the grocery store for these 2 months. It's twofold because the savings from not spending the grocery budget can then be used for buying half a cow or buying a bunch of meat birds or a home project, whatever you want to put it away towards. So we're still deciding what we're going to do with ours, but it's probably going to go towards chickens. But it's been cool because so far we've been using up a lot of different ingredients, like these rice noodles that I just often skip over, but I had half a package left. So it's a cool challenge. So in the future, as we get going a little further into this, we're only 2 weeks into it, but once we get going a little further in, I'll probably start sharing some of the recipes that we are creating, because I think it's going to stretch us a bit and it may produce some unique recipes. So stay tuned, but also check out other accounts doing the pantry challenge as well if you're looking for some interesting new recipes. I had a little bit of leftover milk from the holidays that I needed to use up before it went bad. And one of our favorite meals around here is fridge dump soup. So I tossed in the last bit of milk, which probably was about half a cup, and then poured in some ham cubes that I had thawed from the freezer for dinner. Next, I added a quart-sized jar of home-canned black beans and gave that a good stir. Something I learned about fridge dump soup is you can add almost anything to it and it still tastes delicious. And it sounds crazy and it probably looks gross, but I promise you, if you just have a few staples, it will taste amazing. Then I added a cup or so of cooked rice that I found in the fridge from the night before, and then I added salt and pepper to taste. Usually what I do is I'll get it stirred and heat it up for a bit, and then I'll taste and see if it has enough flavor, and if not, and then I just add some more seasonings in. I was looking in my freezer for some vegetables, and I found a weird little mason jar of frozen radishes. So that's not something I'm usually just gonna fry up or use commonly, so I'm glad I found them, because then I could tuck them away in the soup and add a little bit more veg to dinner. And lastly, I added a generous amount of garlic powder. As you can tell, I don't usually measure. And then I found some other seasonings, and I honestly don't know what they are. I think some were maybe some dried green onion tops, and then we've been gifted some different spice rubs, and we, with Life Schoolhouse, get some different spice rubs from Maker Swaps. And honestly, I have so many unmarked sets of mixed spices, so I just started throwing them in there. And it ended up tasting really good, so I got lucky, I guess.
That was low.
Well, I caught Seal sharpening his claws on that one. Down, put it up. Sorry. Okay.
Top.
Yeah, I already had it on it, then I realized they weren't cooked all the way, but